Thank you for joining. I think we've got a couple more people in the waiting room that will admit. Awesome. So I'll just get started on the introductions. So kia ora koutou, tā hao, and welcome to the NZCTA Young Associates Food and Beverage Entrepreneurs webinar. And thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to join today's event, which is a special industry-focused session. Thank you for attending and tuning in from wherever you may be, especially for those still in the lockdowns and restrictions. We at the YA hope you're doing well and are safe. So soon I'll move on to the introduction of our speaker, Angus, but first a few notes on Zoom etiquette. So please make sure that you're on mute at all times, but feel free to keep your video on if you'd like to, but no pressure either way. It'd be great for all of us and the speakers to see all of your faces. And if you do have a question, please send it to David Robertson directly via private chat, and he'll manage as many as he can at the end. Angus has finished his presentation. If you'd like, you can put it on speaker view so that you can see Angus while he's presenting. And the agenda is as follows. The talk will start in a couple of minutes, and Angus will speak around 20 to 30 minutes. Then we'll have a 20-minute Q&A and wrap up by 1 p.m. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Angus Brown. So Angus Brown is the co-founder of Ārepa, New Zealand's #1 brain food technology company. Launched in January of 2017, Angus has been exploring the relationship between nature, neuroscience, and nutrition for the last 9 years. Prior to starting Ārepa, Angus worked for the New Zealand government in food technology and strategy for 5 years, and at New Zealand Food Innovation Network, and before that at Fruco Beverages. Angus holds a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting and Finance from Victoria University of Wellington. Alongside his co-founder Zach Robinson, Angus noted a demand in the market for mental clarity and a product that, unlike caffeine drinks, was good for the brain, good for health, and good for mental wellness. Ārepa products are sold in 1,300 supermarkets throughout Australasia, specialty food stores, cafes, restaurants, and an online store that grew rapidly during the lockdowns of 2020. And Angus is expecting a launch into the China market early next year. So Angus, over to you and welcome.
Thanks very much, Doris. So I'll just share my screen, and then if we can view this full screen mode. Can everyone see that? Nice. So yeah, welcome everyone. So thanks very much for that introduction. So our company, we call ourselves a brain food technology company, and we decided a long time ago, you know, why are we doing this? What's our reason to exist? And we thought, well, if you kind of peel it all back to like what the core purpose is, it was to make brains work better. And this was from me losing a friend to mental health at high school, and grandparents to kind of brain-related illnesses, and then my co-founder Zach, experiencing anxiety before working for key moments in his busy professional life, as he had just left university and was working for a really kind of intense design firm, and we both kind of started to think, and I was at the time selling the energy drink, and just hated it, and started to think, why am I selling caffeine and sugar and anxiety to the world? Why can't we make a product that helps people think better under moments of pressure and stress, and is healthy for their brain in the long term? And what does that look like? And so that's our core purpose. And today we've kind of gone for a bigger mission where we want to slow down the rate of neurological decline through science-backed, accessible, scalable brain food. And for every year that we can push out neurological decline through food, we can save the world up to $500 billion worth of economic burden, which is seriously substantial. So we're doing this by combining world-leading neuroscience with products that people love. And love is a key word for us. So that was, Doris gave a lovely background in terms of me. I was really fortunate to work for a $30 million modular food factory called the Food Bowl, which was run by the New Zealand government. And that kind of put me onto the pulse of what food technology is, not only in New Zealand, but also around the world. I was fortunate to speak at Stanford University twice on what food tech is, tour around Silicon Valley and learn from what people are doing at Impossible Foods or Just Mayo or Beyond Meat, and also go on these kind of government-led trips to meet with other universities and other food incubators around the world to understand, what the latest technologies are, what the best food strategies are, and how to grow, sustainable and successful food businesses. So we engaged when we first launched the company. We started to speak with one of the world's top neuroscientists in the space of food technology, and kind of as of last year, he's actually come on board as our Chief Science Officer. His name's Professor Andrew Scoley. And we thought if we're going to create a brain drink and become, one of the world's best companies in brain food, we probably need one of the world's best neuroscientists to help with that. And I would certainly say, if you are looking to go into any particular type of business, if you can bring on, people who are subject matter experts as part of your team, your core team, it's super beneficial. And so for us, it's been in nutritional neuroscience. And Professor Scoley is literally almost ranked like kind of top 3 in the world in this space, especially for like brain food. And what was more interesting is that 2 days after we signed him as our Chief Science Officer, Coca-Cola's head office in Atlanta tried to reach out and poach him to set up their own neuroscience division. So we know we've got the right guy on board when this kind of stuff happens. And so we approached Professor Scoley way back to help us develop this formula, and now he helps lead our clinical study program. We've got 9 clinical studies across leading universities in New Zealand and Australia, where we're assessing anything from short-term mental performance through to long-term neurological health, attacking things like depression, dementia, Parkinson's. And then my co-founder, Zachary Robinson. So Zach's a super talented industrial designer and leads our company from a better by design thinking approach. And so everything that you see from us is through his design lens, and we put design at the forefront of our company, along with the science and technology, because everything, people still at the end of the day, they buy with their eyes, and we want to give enough respect and design as what we are giving with the science to our product. And that's really helped with, applying a design thinking lens to our entire business and value chain, where we're kind of recreating the way that you do things and kind of going against traditional models of what, a food company looks like in this day and age. So we know that like 1 in 6 people on this planet suffer from a neurological concern. And I bet everyone on this call, like me, know someone or have personally, experienced a cognitive related concern, and it's not really addressed through food. And so we want to kind of come to the market with, a range of brain food products that can offer, brain health and performance throughout the day, whether that's at breakfast or kind of on the go traveling or a convenience beverage. We've created products that are kind of optimized to be successful in supermarket as well as online direct to consumer. And we combine different types of food technology as well as neuroscience and a little bit of food science. And we essentially focus on key ingredients that are unique to New Zealand, which I'll talk about soon. So the key product, which is a beverage, we think, beverage is the for us, our hero format, you don't really see a music festival sponsored by a nut bar. And so for us, for beverages, is the beverage format is the best way to create kind of culture and trial and a brand around. And so our hero product, we're clinically proving it, and it's proven to show that it can improve mental clarity or mental performance under moments of pressure and stress while being good for your brain in the long term. So that's what our promise is and our formula, and our main product is the beverage, but our formula also does that promise in the other formats that we have. And what I think is really important is to really understand your consumer and make sure that your consumer loves your product, because if they don't, you're never going to get off the ground. So we've amassed a really solid following of consumers who truly love our product because we deliver a felt effect, and it's really actually quite hard to deliver a felt effect in something without caffeine, but we can do this now, which we're really proud of. And we have these really heartwarming testimonies of our customers saying, hey, look, like my husband is recovering from a concussion and he genuinely operates better with your product than without, which is like awesome for us to hear. So we cherish these. We've also been featured in, kind of as the future of energy drinks by Euromonitor, Mintel, and it's starting to, gain international attention, which we're really stoked about. In terms of like a retail expansion, when I first launched, I was like, oh, sweet, and then we'll export to China. But we've actually held off on our export journey to China for the last 3 years because we want to actually get our home base sorted, and that's what we're doing and have done. And it's really important because to prove your kind of, the life of your product, you need to really be successful in your home country and your neighboring countries. And so now we're the next kind of 12 months for us is a really key focus is to keep growing Australia. And we've had a lot of success in the likes of Coles supermarkets and a number of other stores there. And we've just hired our first, team members in Australia to grow that market, and so that's going to be a focus for us for the next wee while before we, really invest the time and effort to launch into Asia properly. Our beverage, when we launch into a new market, like we start at the top of the pyramid and work our way down. So starting at the high-end health food stores, the high-end artisanal food stores, and then we go into more like mass premium locations and then mass locations. And that helps with a brand and education, but also a focus, and it allows us to focus on a key amount of retailers first and not go too far, too wide, too soon. But now that we are, in market and have been in market for a number of years in New Zealand, we're in all the main BP petrol stations and all the Z petrol stations, and that's pretty mass market, but people, need brain health and performance, even if they're filling up their car. And it's been really interesting watching the consumer pattern behaviors and the likes of, BP petrol sites, where we've seen customers, even like truck drivers, come in, they'd buy a packet of smokes, a pie, and then an Ārepa drink to maybe offset some of those unhealthy decisions. And so that's been really interesting to watch. So with our research, we've got 4 key verticals that we focus on. So we deploy clinical studies around how we can improve mental performance, or how we can prove that we can improve mental performance, how we can keep people calm at the same time, how we can protect their brain function in the long term, and how our product is good for you. And what we mean good for you is we mean boost your immune system. And obviously in this day and age with COVID, that's even more important. So our first publication, we physically fatigued athletes, and we found that we could boost their accuracy by 700% versus the taste match placebo, and then boost their cognition by 25%. It was really hard for us to develop a taste match placebo. It took us a whole year to just do that alone. But once we developed it, we could then start to undertake, gold standard clinical studies, and that's why the kind of science community really wants to work with us, because we have these things like a placebo, and the results were so significant. Was now that we have like customers like Olympic athletes, we supplied the rowing gold medalists, we supply the All Blacks, Nitro Circus riders, Steven Adams, the basketballer. We've got Taika Waititi, the director. Larry Page, one of the owners of Google. Really interested in this. And it's not just athletes, but it's people who work really hard physically, but also have to maintain focus. And now we've kind of, like I mentioned before, we've got this pipeline of clinical studies that we are slowly publishing and looking into different things. This is just a kind of a pictorial which depicts the type of research, but this image here is actually a picture of one of our participants getting his brain scanned at the University of Auckland in the School of Psychology. And we've found, this has been pushed out because of COVID, these timings more around kind of February, March next year. But in this study here, we've found that a one-time consumption of Ārepa can improve working memory, memory retention, and multi-scale entropy in stressed university students. And the effects are statistically significant, so much so that it's worth publishing. And the brainwave changes are very similar to what's found if you consume caffeine, but obviously we don't have any caffeine. So that's super interesting. And we've gathered literally terabytes of data from scanning all these brains, and it takes like days to process the data. So we've got 3 key ingredients in our formula. The bottom ingredient is a very popular nootropic. It's found in green tea called L-theanine. It's an amino acid that's structurally similar to kind of a precursor to the neurotransmitter serotonin, and it essentially helps to reduce anxiety without making you drowsy. But what I really like about it is that it counters the negative effects of caffeine, such as that jitteriness, which is a change in systolic blood pressure. And so you could have something like us and be noticeably calmer after drinking, a few cups of coffee and becoming jittery. You could have something like us and be a lot calmer, which is quite cool. Our other 2 ingredients, so we source this from a Japanese supplier, but they manufacture it in Korea. We have our 2 main New Zealand ingredients. One's a pine bark extract in the middle there. So pine bark extract has been traditionally used as a natural alternative to Ritalin for ADD, ADHD children, and used in high doses for concussion recovery. It's a broad spectrum polyphenol that's kind of similar to the polyphenols found in dark chocolate or kind of grape skin extract. And it tastes horrible. So we've spent a lot of time masking the bitterness and astringency using natural flavors. And then our other key ingredient is New Zealand black currants. And we've got this unique variety we call neuroberry, which has got some really interesting kind of anti-depression, anti-dementia effects that we're investigating. And so we've got the largest blackcurrant growers on board as investors, so we can scale globally. We also have the ex-CEO of Zespri, the $5 billion kiwi fruit company, Lane Yeager. He's invested in us, and he's helping us with our breeding program that we have with Planted Food Research. Planted Food Research are the guys that bred the golden kiwi fruit, and so we're working with them to breed new higher grade versions of this neuroberry that perform more effectively in some of these conditions. And then it kind of goes on to how we apply technology across our research verticals. So we've got this breeding program set up. We're also looking at AI and kind of light technology to enhance its properties naturally, and then we do kind of mechanisms of action, biodiscovery, food technology, stability work, and then work with leading universities to do clinical studies. We won the Innovation Award at Field Days 2 years ago. Won Startup of the Year last year for Nutrient Ingredients, Asia Pacific. We've got a range of food products that range from kind of short-term performance to kind of daily maintenance. Our beverages are our main products, and so we've got the strong ones on the left-hand side, and then the lighter sparkling versions on the right-hand side. And you can find these at most supermarkets, or otherwise online at drinkaarepa.com. Our smoothie powder is super popular online. It's like a month's supply for about $40, and you sprinkle it on top of your cereal or put it into your smoothies. It's got some of the highest levels of vitamin C out of any kind of fruit or vegetable in a powder format, known and kind of commercial at a commercial scale, and it's got some of the highest levels of color. The reason why you buy blueberries, say for example, is because of the antioxidants. and the antioxidant function is the color from it. Our black currants have got more color than blueberry or acai berry or maki berry, which is really, really interesting, and they have this adaptogenic kind of benefit. So that's what it looks like. Then we have our capsules, which are a really popular product online, really convenient. This is one of our bottling plants. We make our product through. These are our freeze-dried neuroberries. It's our shot product that we're launching. We've kind of launched, but it tastes really tart, and we're just kind of slowly improving the formulation. So if you're brave enough, you can find them in BP petrol stations or some supermarkets. Otherwise, buy them online. But we're slowly improving this formula because it's real intense. There's a mental clarity machine. We worked with New Zealand's top lighting artist and a neuroscientist to develop a machine that could modulate brainwave activity using light and sound frequencies. And so it modulates it onto the alpha wavelength. And so alpha brainwaves relate to the state of flow that psychologists deem as the zone. And so Ārepa is Te Reo Māori for alpha. And so our drink Ārepa, that's what it does. It gets you into the zone internally. Yeah, that's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you again, Angus, for the presentation. And if you guys still have any other questions that you'd like to ask Angus, please send them over to David Robertson so that he can look over. Cool. I'll pass it over to you, David, for the questions.
Awesome. Thank you for your presentation, Angus. I thought it was pretty interesting how you said it was difficult and quite a long process to create a placebo as a control group for such quite a new area. I imagine that must have been pretty challenging, but glad to see it's worked well. So yeah, again, thank you. And onto the Q&A now. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. And I'll just get on them. I'll get onto them in a second, but just as a reminder to our audience that if you want to see recordings like these, then we have a whole catalog for Patreon members. So you can see all of the past free and paid recordings and webinars from the NZCTA Young Associates. And that starts at just $2 a month for access to those. Cool, so a few questions here. Would it not be more cost effective and efficient for users to take a capsule? This person's keen to see what thoughts you have on that.
Yeah, so the most cost-effective dose of our product is in our smoothie powder, and then second, it's 2 capsules. But each format has got different pros and cons to it. So the powder, it's not as convenient because you essentially need to create a smoothie or have a bowl of cereal or yogurt to combine with it. It doesn't mix into water. It's like a whole food smoothie powder. The capsules are really convenient, but because they're in a capsule format, they don't have the liquid blackcurrant juice, which contains some of the other compounds that help with mental performance and brain health. The capsules are really ideal for people with ADD or concussion recovery, or just, if you're kind of traveling and looking for a good, kind of antioxidant, brain health and performance support. But because they're in a capsule format, they take longer to absorb in your body. The fastest response product is our performance beverage, because it gets absorbed a lot faster into the bloodstream, and so you get an instant effect within about 20 minutes after consumption, as opposed to 45 minutes from the capsules. And it's a slower effect because it's a slow kind of absorption rate. So that's kind of the lay of the land, and it's really up to you, the consumer, to decide how you prefer to take your brain health performance supplements.
Cool, thanks for your answer. A few more questions here. Do you think you'll be looking for further investment for your international expansion? Can you share that at this point?
Yep. So we have we've done a small rounds to bring on the ex-CEO of Zespri and one of the co-founders of Red Antler, which is a creative agency out of New York, and he was the creative brains behind the branding of Allbirds shoes, Simon Andreas. So we've done a small amount to bring them on and to help with our expansion in Australia. We'll be doing a capital raise in, I'd say, kind of 8 to 12 months and that'll be more of a Series A, and that would help with our expansion further into Asia and then into the US. We're launching into cold storage in Singapore in around February next year, which we're kind of excited about, and that'll be one of the beachhead locations that will then help us kind of get further into Asia. And we also have Hong Kong on the cards too for early next year. And as well as the Google offices in Hong Kong, China, and Singapore within those locations too, which is really excited. We've been speaking to Google for the past 12 months, and we're only just starting to go into their offices in Auckland, Sydney, Singapore, which is cool.
Cool. People really want to know about how you're going to enter the Chinese market. So things like, if you've got any partners or ideas of partners, how you might tailor your product, that kind of thing. Can you share anything with us, any specifics at the moment about that?
Yeah, so we're looking for an in-market channel partner that understands the both retail and online landscapes. Would be kind of hiring, local or Chinese people to help navigate that market, because it's I unfortunately don't speak the language and still learning about the culture. And so it presents a massive opportunity, but we essentially need to have the right resource to be able to enter that market effectively and sustainably. So we would build out a whole business unit dedicated to that market, and they would be based up in China with some connectivity here in New Zealand. And so that would be part of our capital raise, would be to do that. And then, we're just at the moment on the hunt for the right type of channel partner that's got local connectivity to, high-end retail opportunities, as well as a good understanding of how kind of online, offline works and the role that plays, as well as the type of marketing resource that you need to build a high value brand, not a kind of fast and cheap brand. We want to build, a sustained, 100-year long brand globally. And so what's required to do that? For Japan, for example, you may not want to hear about what our plans are for Japan, but that's an even tougher market to penetrate from a beverage perspective. So we're even looking at licensing opportunities with Korea and Japan, with some of the bigger end of town like Asahi, Suntory, Onitsuka, Meiji. We're speaking to these companies from a licensing perspective, because we think it would be better to work with them to penetrate that market deeper and over a longer term than try and do it yourself. So that's some of our thinking at the moment.
Thanks. I'm currently getting bombarded by questions in the chat, so forgive me, it takes a little bit of time for me to get to them.
Sure.
Another question, but we've got plenty of time, fortunately. So do you have can you share any experience or reflections or any tips when it comes to navigating functional foods or natural health products regulation?
Yep. So have good lawyers, have good scientists. You need to both understand the framework for which you are operating and then have the science to back up what you are saying your product does. Each market is different, and so it comes with different sets of challenges. But if you do, the best thing to do is to publish science on your finished formula, and then no one can challenge you because it's published science. But then you are, I guess, constrained to what you can say if you go into therapeutic effects. So there's health benefits or performance benefits. So improves joint function or mental performance or mental clarity. But if you go on to say that you kind of prevent or delay the onset of a disease, that's a therapeutic. So like anti-depression, anti-dementia, anti-Parkinson's. So we are going into that research, but we're kind of undertaking the science, telling the story about us undertaking that science. And then when we publish that science, kind of let the consumer make their mind up and create that connection. But on our website, on our packaging, we won't really be able to make those types of claims. Similar to like, kiwi fruit, although there are some claims there, some really interesting effects on, IBS and kind of gut health, but people just know that, kiwi fruit is good for your gut health. And so we want to be known that for brain health. But yeah, we have 3 different types of like IP lawyers, and then a world-renowned scientist, and about 10 other neuroscience, nutritional science, nutritionists, dietitians that are part of our advisory panel that we bring in for different projects to ensure that we have the right level of kind of scientific evidence to help withstand up to any kind of jurisdiction or kind of, response.
Thanks. Yeah, I imagine you'll need to really get your head around IP before you break into China. Another question.
We filed our trademark a long time ago.
Great to hear. What does the market of the products you're in look like actually, perhaps I should reword this. What are some of the similarities between the Chinese and Singapore markets when it comes to the industry that you're in?
I would have a clue. And I don't, because my focus at the moment is growing Australia, undertaking more clinical research, launching into Singapore. So I couldn't tell you the similarities between the Chinese consumer and the Singaporean consumer because I haven't done that piece of research. But what I know is that, like everyone on this world, everyone's got problems with their brain, and everyone wants their brain to work better. And our product delivers, improved brain health and performance. So I don't see why there would be nuances between maybe taste preference. But if you think about it, Red Bull, when it first came to market, to the consumer tasted like shit, but it's a multi-billion-dollar brand now because it delivers on a kind of a mental performance, physical performance benefit, and all the marketing that comes with it and that brand appeal. And so, we have a particular unique taste because of the efficacy of our key New Zealand ingredients. And we will maybe dial up, sweetness or acidity depending on each market, and maybe look at, including different ingredients that resonate more. Maybe it's with Manuka honey but we're more focusing on delivering an effect and a promise, and then letting the consumer make their mind up from there.
Thanks. Moving away from China just quickly, perhaps. There's another question here, which is, what were the key takeaways that you took from your experience in food bowl that helped you when starting up Ārepa? And how did you utilize your connections there when it came to starting up, if you did?
The key takeaways, I guess, were really understanding how you're going to make your product at scale from the start. Like a lot of people that were coming to the food bowl, they have this amazing product that they made in their kitchens or their small, commercial kitchens, but it was really fiddly and it was hard to then be able to say, well, okay, how do you make millions of this product? And so there was a massive kind of leap for them to move to large scale manufacturing. So that was one thing. The other is learn about defensibility and, okay, if your product becomes successful, how can you stop others from, copying it? And we're getting, we're getting knockoffs now and people, copying our kind of formulation, but we have patent protection as well as investment from the supply chain who supply us either exclusively or at a kind of a below market rate. And so we have defensibility protecting the formulation, which we've invested in and spent a lot of time creating, as well as our supply chain. And that creates barriers for competition to try and copy us because, like I said in my presentation, anyone can do a kombucha. If you're looking to launch a new product, hey, we've got this, this honey product or this kiwi fruit bar or, what's to stop a big multinational just copying the thing and going to market a lot faster and a lot wider than you. So you need to start to think about what's defensible about my product, and how can I create more barriers around that. So that's certainly what I learned about. And then what is scalable? Are there enough black currants out there? And we're finding that we're going to need to grow more black currants to keep up with the growth that we're seeing. And are there enough black currants out there? Are there enough of this packaging? Is this packaging sustainable? What are some other considerations? If you grow a big product, but you happen to be, it might be, I don't know, if it's a dairy product, is dairy going to be the most like sustainable type of solution? As we grow, what are the big trends that are coming to the forefront? Are people actually wanting this type of product? So that was certainly good. And then also I learned, just going like slowly growing, not jumping to large scale manufacturing straight away, taking your time, refining your craft, getting your product better, and then moving into larger scale manufacturing and testing it on the market and prototyping it. And then, in terms of connections, I mean, when you work there for 6 years, you're working kind of at the nexus of food technology within New Zealand and Australia and actually around the world. And so I built a very large Rolodex of contacts from, packaging to technology to scientists. And certainly I reached out to them when I left and started this to, get advice or help or pay them to help me on this project. So yeah, it's been really, really valuable.
Thank you. Will your company look to focus more in growing in new markets compared to existing markets? Like, where's the balance between growing in existing markets where you already are compared to potential new markets like China?
We're going quite deep in Australia because there's a lot of growth there that's like achievable within the next few months or in the next 12 months. And then in terms of new markets, and so we're doing that ourselves. We're hiring people in those markets. And then for, new markets, it's really just like constant, I guess, gathering market data and market insights and understand what various contacts are, build our networks before we make a more kind of strategic play for that particular market. So it's a kind of a mixture of constantly doing research on that market, testing out, prototyping, testing different channels to understand like velocities or throughputs or opportunity. And then once you get a feel for it, then committing, substantially to any one particular market that we choose. But like we're torn because the US is a really rich opportunity, and the market for nootropic drinks or brain drinks is quite mature. And so place like Whole Foods, like I've got the buyer's detail to Whole Foods, the beverage buyer, and it's like, when do I email this guy? And it's looking at the likes of Fix and Fog, who are now in all of Whole Foods and all of Sprouts. It's like that opportunity it's a lot clearer. And the consumer understands there's a shelf of brain drinks there that we can kind of compete on. Whereas, say in China or in Asia, there's a kind of a wide variety of anti-fatigue drinks, study drinks, and Chinese traditional medicine. And it's like, where do we fit? Are we in the Western kombucha side, or do we sit up next to the $30 bottle of ginseng? And so we're how, and then what's the brand play and what's the channel? Is it just students for exams, or is it people who've had a concussion, or is it the aging population on anti-dementia, or and so there's a lot of work to go before we have a clear idea of what the play is.
Sure. Another question, and sorry if you've covered this already, but so we're talking about expanding into Asia and into China. Is there potential, or what potential is there for reaching out to and really growing amongst overseas Chinese, such as in Australia and New Zealand?
There are massive expat networks within each major city centre around the world. And So if we were to launch in China, we would also look to tap the Chinese communities within the markets that we were already in, because there'd be a lot of connection back home. Oh, this is cool in my town, so yeah, it should be cool back home in Shanghai. And so we would certainly, and that's what we've done with the New Zealand expat community. In any overseas market that we're in, we jump on Facebook or tap into the embassies and create awareness that we're now existing in their city that they're in. So yeah, that's definitely something that we would do for sure.
Sure. Just a nice comment here. It's not a question. It says, my partner and I use your products and love them. So I'm super interested to watch your growth into China. Question actually from me. So you mentioned challenges like finding business partners in China, as well as language barriers, given you don't speak Mandarin, and you touched on sustainability a bit and that kind of stuff a bit. Do any other really massive pressing challenges come to mind when it comes to your business expanding into China?
No, not really. It would be just the brand play, but how our brand is kind of perceived and communicated, and what nuances or changes do we need to make to be more optimized for the Chinese consumer, from a kind of packaging, sensory, shape, format, taste, and what is Ārepa offensive in Mandarin, or and so all those considerations will come into how we go about launching formally. But until then, we're more than open to, taking an order for, stock. If someone wants to, buy a container load and sell it into a high-end supermarket, we won't change a thing and would launch into their high-end supermarket. But again, it's that top of the pyramid, because then you can control where it goes. So yeah, there's a heap of work to go before we would be ready for China, for sure.
Awesome, thank you. I actually think on that note, we're coming up on 45 minutes on this webinar. Again, appreciate everyone's patience. So I think we might leave it at that. Apologies if your question wasn't asked. I tried to really get a variety of them in there. Again, I'm just conscious of the time. So on that note, thank you, Angus, for taking part in this Q&A, and for the audience for your questions. And I will hand back to Doris.
Cool. Thank you again, Angus, for taking your time out of your schedule to join us this afternoon. We're also honoured to hear you speak about this exciting and significant industry, and to share your valuable insights. So if you guys would like to stay in the loop and be the first to know about our other upcoming events for 2022, please follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and WeChat. And also please sign up to our Patreon, which is less than $3 a month, as David mentioned before. And I think David has just posted those links in the chat. So yeah, please check out our website for our next events, and sign up to our newsletter. So thank you all for coming today. Stay safe, kia kaha, and have a great afternoon. Thank you, everyone.